Dan Gilbert and Mayor Duggan, as well as everyone's excited to see Governor Whitmer's keynote address this afternoon. All of that content is available on our website, DetroitChamber.com, as well as Detroit PBS. So please be sure to tune in. We want to make sure that this conference is accessible to all Michiganders, not just those who are here at Grand Hotel. So we're going to start off this morning, as we have the last two mornings, with our favorite pollster in Michigan, Richard Schuba. And our host this morning is Kevin Dietz from All Talk on WJR. So Kevin, Richard, I look forward to this.
All right. Yeah. So this is
good morning.
Good morning. How are you? I just love. I love this whole conference. I love this year especially because there's so many open seats, so many elections coming up that everybody has to be here and everybody's accessible, and then everyone else is around because they want to be around those that are not often accessible. And so we have this great turnout and a lot of excitement. And we just had a chance to talk to the governor a few minutes ago. And one of the things I thought was really interesting about her polling was this polling after she went and saw Donald Trump. And supposedly the Democratic Party was furious with her, and how could you go and talk to him and not give him any credibility at all? And she's like, well, I'm trying to do my job, get something done for Selfridge, trying to get something done for to stop the Asian carp, and the public seems to love it. They seem to love the idea of somebody doing their job instead of just absolutely being total enemies with the other party.
One of the interesting things we see of the governor's approval rating is it's consistently high. In this one, it was over 50, which is where she's been since, I'd say, fall of 21, at the end of COVID, that COVID era. Her numbers just took off. And it's because she speaks the language of independence. And in Michigan, that's what matters. We asked this question last year for the chamber. Do you want your political leaders to talk to the other side and go across the aisle and work with the other side to get things done? Or do you want your political leaders to fight for your party's positions? And it's not even close. 70-19, they want them to cross the aisle and get things done. So anybody who complains about the governor working with the president, they're part of that 19%.
I used to think that maybe it was because she was a cool governor. She was on TikTok. She has leather jackets and things. And probably that can be part of it. But sure. I think truly they like that she's term limited it out, but she's still working really hard and trying to get things done in a situation where it'd be really easy to just say, you know what, there's a Republican president now, I'm just going to wind it down. But she's not doing that.
Michigan voters want a governor who's going to get things done, and they don't care who she has to get things done with. We see a lot of conversation nationally about how do the Democrats come back and win. In a state like Michigan, you've got to win that center. You've got to win the independents. A suggestion to national Democrats is maybe you listen to what the people who win the center in Michigan have to say. And in Michigan, we have two real superstars of the center. And that is Gretchen Whitmer and Alyssa Slotkin. Mm-hmm. They're both very good at talking to independents. National Democrats should listen to what they're doing.
Yeah, but there is the problem that the media is going to pick up whatever is on the farthest to the right and the farthest to the left. So to get heard at all, it seems like you have to come out and say things that really kind of turn independents off.
It sure does, but the proof is on election day. Who actually gets elected? And it's those candidates who talk to the middle. They know the language of the middle. And if you don't know that language, it doesn't matter what party you come from, if you don't know the language of the middle, if you don't work that 20% of the vote that makes the Michigan decision, you're going to lose.
Do you have two different strategies then? One for the primary to get through and then one for the general? Or would you be better served to stick to what would work in the general?
Well, this is something we see every election, and particularly we now see it during the Trump administration, where Republicans have to carry the positions of Donald Trump. They want Donald Trump's backing to get through a primary. That becomes an albatross for independents.
Right.
Bill Schuette, when he ran in 2018, was the first candidate who really faced that albatross. I don't know that any candidate has done a good job of making that juxtaposition. Democrats aren't as saddled with that because they've been running for these midterms where Donald Trump is the question before the voters. They aren't saddled with that. They have a Democratic president, like they did with Biden. They'll have to face that.
That is one of the reasons I'm so interested in this governor's race that's coming up, because now we have an independent, Mike Duggan, who's the Democratic mayor of Detroit, running as an independent and talking about how everybody is sick of the right and the left fighting with each other, which I think is a really, really good message. How is it playing now? What are the numbers showing us?
Well, we have fresh data here, and I want to caution, we're 17 months away.
We love numbers every day, every day. We don't care if they change. We'll talk about how they changed each day.
So we tested all the different combinations. So when I refer to these numbers, I want to look at the front runners in the nominations. And we tested James, Benson, and Duggan. And there's a difference between registered voters and definite voters. Amongst registered voters, we have Benson and Duggan tied at 34. Or Benson and James tied at 34, Duggan at 22. Amongst registered voters, there's a Democratic advantage. We see Benson jump by 5 points, and Duggan is still at 22. But I just want to point out how unusual that 22 is for Mike Duggan for an independent. This is not
right.
This is not something Michigan has seen. And his numbers are probably the most interesting I've seen in 40 years.
An independent typically might have 3% or something, 5%?
Well, we typically don't even have an independent because it is so rare that an independent, it is so unusual to have a candidate run as an independent, frankly, with the gravitas of Mayor Duggan. And if you look at the Metro Detroit region, for example, he is beloved in that region. He has 86% name ID, breaking 55 favorable to 8 unfavorable. That's like Gretchen Whitmer.
Right.
So that's how unusual he is. His challenge is in outstate, where nobody knows him.
Nobody.
And we've tested these questions in the past about, is Detroit on the right or wrong track? Everybody in Metro Detroit thinks Detroit's on the right track. But outstate, nobody knows. And I think it's a tale of two states here. There's always been this divide between the Metro Detroit and the rest of the state, but I think this candidacy highlights that difference. The challenge for Mayor Duggan moving forward is, it's both a challenge and an opportunity. Can he translate some of his power in Metro Detroit into relationships with voters in outstate? If he can, this becomes a very serious three-way race.
So it seems like this story of Detroit's comeback, it seems like it's this national story. We had the NFL draft and the whole world was watching. We got all this good press. Is the rest of the state not aware of this, or do they not associate Duggan with that? Or
no, they're not aware of it. We've asked this question a million times, and outstate voters just don't know what's happening in Detroit, which I know for those of us in Metro Detroit is shocking. But they're not in the media market. They don't see the stories every day. And we see this national narrative of the Detroit comeback, but even that is not registering yet. It is going to take daily, constant hammering of the story for it to sink into the psyche of the nation that Detroit has come back.
So the other side of this, the other part of the equation is the finances. And I think about Jocelyn Benson may not have to spend a ton of money to get through the primary. Mike Duggan doesn't have to spend any. He'll be there. He's an independent. For the Republicans, I don't know. Is Mike Cox registering against John James? Are they going to be able to beat each other up a little, spend their money, and then be weak when they get to the general?
Well, the candidate with the highest name ID for governor isn't actually in the race yet. And that is Tudor Dixon.
Okay.
She has 75% name ID. It's underwater. It's unfavorable because there's a lot of Democrats who remember that name and don't like it. But Republicans do like her.
Right.
And, if she were to get into this race, she would give John James some real fits in the primary. This is not a slam dunk for Congressman James running. I think he is going to face a number of candidates. They're going to have some money. He's going to have to fight to win that nomination. I think the path for Secretary Benson is frankly looks easier because Democrats know her and like her. So there's a real difference there, but it's also that opportunity for that third candidate too.
The last time I interviewed Tudor Dixon, she said she was seriously looking at the Senate race and the governor's race, and I don't think she's decided yet on either one. How does the Senate race look for her and for everybody?
Well, the Senate race looks like a much more traditional Michigan race. I mean, the governor's race we're all excited about because we don't see three-way races in Michigan. There's going to be a two-way race. Mike Rogers is the clear favorite on the Republican side. He comes in with 76% name ID, a lot of residual name ID from the last election. On the Democratic side, you have three candidates, Congresswoman Haley Stevens and Abdullah El-Sayed, both come in at about 43% name ID. Mallory McMorrow comes in at about 21% name ID. She has a lot further to go. But Rogers has a clear 30-point name ID advantage, and yet, when you look at the head-to-heads in the general election, Rogers leads amongst registered voters against Abdullah El-Sayed and Mallory McMorrow. But Haley Stevens leads by 1 point amongst registered voters, and that expands to 6 points amongst definite voters.
Is this statewide, or are some stronger in Grand Rapids, is some stronger in Detroit, some stronger maybe up?
Well, clearly, Haley Stevens, as I like to say, she has some independent zhuzh, that Alyssa Slotkin has. Not as strong as Slotkin's, but she has something extra, particularly down in Southeast Michigan. She brings something that, frankly, the other two Democrats don't have yet. And when we look specifically at those independents, Rogers and Stevens are tied amongst independents. Even though Rogers has that 30-point name ID advantage, when you look at Abdullah El-Sayed, Rogers leads independents by 22 points. When you look at Mallory McMorrow, he leads them by 17. Haley Stevens has something with those independents that's unusual.
So how far will this go in the primary? Will people drop out, or will they stay in, likely based on the numbers that you're seeing? Is there any reason for someone to bail and say, I don't want to run a race I can't win?
Well, there's a lot of reasons to bail, but do we know any politicians that ever really do?
Right.
I mean, at the time we did the poll, for example, former Speaker Joe Tate wasn't in the race yet, so his numbers aren't in here. But the one thing I will say is, and this is just historically, state representatives and state senators don't particularly poll very high in name ID with the voters. They really overestimate their name ID and, frankly, their importance with the voters versus a congressperson, somebody who's held a bigger office. So they're at a disadvantage in these races.
So of all the numbers that you've been looking at, what is like the biggest surprise number that, what kind of caught you?
Well, I think the number that caught me goes back to the economy. And that is, we're seeing drastically increased concerns about the recession and inflation. And why that's important is, this is going to be a referendum on Donald Trump. Any midterm is a referendum on the presidency, with the exception of 22, which was a referendum on Roe v. Wade.
Right, right.
So this will be about Donald Trump, and how those independents think of the economy is going to determine where this election goes.
If Tudor Dixon were to jump back in, would she have that issue? Would she still be stuck with that issue, though, even though the issue on abortion has been settled in the state?
Yes.
Will those commercials come back and be a problem for her?
Well, one of the things we see is that the abortion issue, its impact has waned with independents, but it is very powerful on the Democratic side. So it's a very strong galvanizing tool on the Democratic side. Those independents, it's about the economy. We saw that in the presidential. They weren't happy with the economy, and guess what? They're still not happy with the economy, and they think it's getting worse. If that continues, that presents a real problem for the Republicans.
All right, I think we're out of time.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Richard. This has been a great session. Richard always brings energy to the stage, and the only people who bring more energy are DTE Energy, who is a sponsor of this program live from Mackinac. It's been a great week so far. Speaking of DTE Energy, the sponsor of this program, up next we have Jerry Norcia, who is the CEO of DTE Energy, to have a conversation about the growth of nuclear power in Michigan and how it can be a critical component of our baseload energy. And I'll tell you, as someone who grew up about 5 miles away from a nuclear power plant, it is not only a provider of baseload energy, but a great provider of employment for everyday Michiganders. So Jerry, Kevin, look forward to this conversation.
Welcome. Get in the hot seat. It's a hard seat to get into.
It is. I'll pull this back a little bit.
Right?
All right.
That drop in there?
Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for sponsoring this. This
you
has
bet.
been a great opportunity to hear
is.
from people.
Yeah, I was listening to the prior one. All very interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating, and it's been great up here at the conference because so many people are here and active, and everybody's out and about. And I think some of that's because of the election. It's not always for the policy, but the policy is important.
It is very important.
What are some of the things that? What are some of the goals for DTE up here?
Well, certainly we're trying to educate policymakers on great work that our company is doing to really transform the way we produce power, as well as transforming the way we deliver power on the grid and making that much, much more reliable than it's ever been. So we're investing really heavily in both areas and in a historic transformation, really, for our company. You know, we're really reinventing the way we produce power and also automating, modernizing how we deliver power to our customers to make it much more reliable and affordable.
Yeah, how hard is it to sort of transition and still keep costs down? Because just the whole idea of it, it's expensive to switch over.
It is expensive, but we've done a remarkable job, Kevin, in really managing bills for our customers. When we look at, and this is really important for us, is really reliability, safety, and affordability are three sort of pillars of our strategy at DTE, and that's what we talk about every day is those three components of our strategy. And if you look at from 2021 through 2025, our total bill increase has been 2%, like in total on an absolute basis. And that puts us in best in class from all utilities across the country, and it's something that we benchmark, so we're really proud of that.
When you talk about reliability, what are the hurdles that we see here? And is Michigan unique from other parts of the country?
Well, it's not unique, but it's been changing.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, about a decade ago, we started to see wind velocities in the state above 30 miles an hour increase at a pretty high slope, like about a 45% increase over the last decade or so. And the number of days that we had wind velocities above 30 miles an hour, which meant that we had to start investing heavily in tree trimming and creating more clearance between the trees and our power systems. So that was the first investment, and then we had to make our system more resilient. So we're investing about $1.5 billion a year right now in the grid, and just to give you a sense, well, what does that mean over the last 5 years? We replaced 100,000 poles, which is about 10% of our poles. We got 1 million poles. 10% of our poles have been replaced. 15% of our transformers, about 70,000 transformers have been replaced, and 10% of our 5,000 miles of line wire has been replaced. We've also done about 46,000 miles of tree trimming. So when you start putting that all together, it starts to pay very significant dividends. So from 23 to 24, we saw a 70% reduction in duration of outages. This year so far, we're down another 60%. Now I would say about half of that is true performance of the grid, because we've cleared trees for 7 years in a very aggressive fashion, replaced 10% of our poles, 15% of our transformers, 10% of our wire, and we've also put on about 1,000 automation devices that can isolate and locate an outage very quickly so that we can get to those customers and restore them very quickly. Sometimes in seconds, you got 80% of your customers restored when you have automation. So in 4 or 5 years, we're going to have a fully automated system, and we're going to have a fundamentally different result for our customers.
Driving up here, driving up I-75, you go right through Gaylord, and they had a storm of the century. You know, the ice storm, and you talk about poles, they were wiped out. The trees that came down there. How much does a storm like that, does it set you guys back, or is that built into the planning that you're going to have? Well,
we plan for a certain level of storms every year. And usually what we do is take about a 5-year average. Now the average has been going up, and but that storm was historic, and that is a very unusual ice storm that hit northern Michigan. Now we got hit in 2023.
Right.
That took us about 6 or 7 days to get our customers all back and restored. And I think in northern Michigan, there wasn't an ability to move enough resources here. Just you didn't have places to keep our workers.
Right.
We were sending workers up here. We didn't have the problem, but we were sending workers up here, and it was tough to find accommodations. So you can't flood the area with an army.
Right.
Like when we had the ice storm, we flooded our service territory with 4,000 people. I had 2,000 people waiting that had come from other states already, waiting for the storm to hit.
Yeah.
So when it hit, we mobilized 4,000 people and got it done pretty quickly.
Wow.
But our goal in all of this is, as we invest, of course, the frequency and duration goes down of our storms. But I've also given the team another goal, which is all major storms restored in 48 hours. So we had a couple of major storms down south already, and we're running about 99.9% restored in 48 hours. Every last customer. We track it to the last customer, and that's something we shoot for.
Is there still talk about moving lines underground, or is that just too expensive?
I love everything being underground. You know, in the gas business, everything's underground.
Right.
And when the wind blows, nothing happens.
Nobody knows.
Right. So I love when we can put stuff underground, but it's very expensive. We're trying to get the cost down. We did an experiment in Detroit where we did about 5 miles of undergrounding, and it's running about $2 to $3 million a mile, which overhead is about $1.5 million. So if we can get that cost even remotely close to that number, I think we'll start doing a lot more undergrounding. So the team's experimenting. The engineers are trying to engineer cost out. And ultimately, the best solution is put as much of this stuff underground as we can, where it makes sense.
You were talking about the wind knocking the trees down. Is there enough wind for wind to be an energy source here?
It is. I mean, we're the largest wind operator in the state. We produce power with wind. We got approximately $3 billion of wind assets already deployed in the state. Right now, we're deploying solar technology. We're building thousands of acres of solar panels, and at the same time also building battery systems. So if you look at our plan overall, I'll just maybe take a minute here to explain it to you. We are really transitioning our fleet from a heavy coal fleet to renewables, batteries, nuclear. We want to expand our nuclear plant. I can talk to you about that. And we're also going to build natural gas plants. We built one a couple of years ago, and it's running like a clock.
Yeah.
And we need to build more gas plants as well. So natural gas, nuclear, solar, wind, batteries. It's a very balanced portfolio that pays huge dividends for our customers, so you're not over-reliant on one resource or the other.
Well, nuclear is really clean, and it's really reliable.
It is.
So how do we move in that direction?
Great question. So we've got, we own and operate Fermi 2. It's a 1,200 megawatt nuclear reactor, powers about 1 million homes, and has been providing power to the state since 1985. So it's been in service for 40 years. We got a 20-year extension, so we're going to run it for another 20 years. We're also looking to expand the output of this reactor. It's one of the best, by the way, it's one of the best operating nuclear reactors in the country. We're just recognized by our peers as a highly effective and safe and reliable asset. So we're proud of that, and I'm proud of our team that helped make that happen. But we're looking to expand it, and it's about $1 billion investment. But we need enabling legislation that allows us to make that kind of investment. In Indiana and Virginia, they've passed legislation that actually supports the expansion of nuclear in their states, and we want similar legislation passed here in Michigan. So that one of the things we're up here talking to legislators about is really the expansion of nuclear energy, and it'll certainly be the expansion of the existing asset, and then ultimately small modular nuclear reactors that you've heard a lot about. We've got a license to build another nuclear plant down at Fermi, and we're exploring the feasibility of building small modular nuclear reactors down at Fermi, and I think it's very possible once they become commercially available.
So you said safety is one of your pillars. The word nuclear just scares people. What should people know about nuclear and why it is safe?
Well, we've never had a serious nuclear accident in the United States, and it's because of all of the safety measures that have been in place to protect, protect the asset, but most importantly, protect the people who operate the asset and people who live around the asset. And the amount of, I can assure you, the amount of redundancy and the amount of engineering with these assets, it's a near impossibility to have a problem. Very, very safe, and the community in Monroe loves us there. They love the fact that we're there. We employ 700 people, down at Fermi, and we're making massive investments, which creates property tax base and benefit to the community. And we're highly engaged with the community, and we appreciate the fact that they're hosting us there.
Do we feel that we can continue to push to solar and wind and keep reliability up, or do you need a mixed approach?
You got to have a mixed approach. Renewables doesn't exist without nuclear, gas, and coal. You have to have the base load. So when you think about our industrial base, and even just our residential base, I mean, we're a 24/7 operation. We're available to our customers on average between 99.9, 99.97% of the time. I mean, we're almost a flawless industry. We have very high standards for reliability. We can't have intermittent resources rule the day. I mean, we love solar, we love wind, but we love coal and gas and nuclear just as much because that keeps the grid alive. Without that, the grid dies.
So can the grid handle all of this, the new things that are coming out? You talk about AI, you talk about EVs. There's so much new technology coming so quickly.
It's so the interesting thing, it really doesn't come very quickly. I think the opportunity has presented itself in a very quick fashion, but even data centers, which we're in deep discussions and negotiations to bring data centers to Michigan, that's going to be tens of billions of dollars of investment in this state, that, in addition to our billions of dollars of investment that we're making. And we're so excited about it because it does two things. It just creates a technology sort of investment ecosystem that'll be unparalleled in the country if we do it right. And it'll also drive electric bills down. And we're going to build the power plants to do it. So we're going to need to build solar because they want solar, they want to be green. We're going to build battery systems, but we're also going to build gas and nuclear. And that's how we're going to support that. And we'll stay ahead of them. It's going to take them 5 to 7 years to ramp. And it takes us about 5 to 7 years to build power plants and build assets, other assets to support it.
So as we need it, we'll continue to
build. We'll build it.
Yeah.
And if they, and we'll time it so we don't get ahead of them. And we'll protect the rest of our customers. And actually, it'll drive bills down because that much juice flowing through our wires and our systems will actually push bills down for the rest of our customers. So we're pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
And huge property tax benefit to where they invest. You can imagine if put a $10 billion data center in a community, it's going to be the largest property taxpayer in the community.
Right, yeah, for sure.
Build schools and fire stations and roads, and it drives all kinds of economic development.
Do you get a lot of that not in my backyard?
Not so much with data centers because they're like a big warehouse. It's sort of like building a FedEx or Amazon warehouse. They millions of square feet of buildings, and these things are quiet. They don't make any noise.
Right.
And we'll put them in an area where they won't. They're looking for land where there's already industrial activity.
Yeah.
And close to the electric infrastructure because they pull a lot of juice. Yeah.
So what is the legislation that you need to get passed? What are the roadblocks? What are the hurdles in front of it?
Well, we're really happy that we got the sales and use tax exemption passed for data centers because as soon as that happened, I mean, the level and intensity of negotiations with these parties just went way up. And you can imagine all the big names. They're all here. They're all,
oh, yeah, I know.
And they're here at this conference, too. And so that got done. I think the next step is really the one that we're pursuing, two pieces of legislation. One is carbon capture, enabling carbon capture and storage. So when we produce carbon from natural gas plants, we want to be able to capture that and store it underground. So we need that legislation to move. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for us to retire coal. And our coal plants are really old. And we want to move towards more modern, more efficient, cleaner natural gas technology with carbon capture and storage. And so we'd like to move that legislation. So we're working on that hard while we're up here. And my team's in front of me here. They're the ones, so you can see the two of them that are working it. And the other piece of legislation is this nuclear legislation. Like we want nuclear to grow in Michigan, and we're one of the largest operators of nuclear in the state of Michigan, one of the few operators of a nuclear plant. So we want to build the future for nuclear.
So it's educate everybody, let them know that it's in the best interest of everyone in the state.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter what party's in office, who's running the show. It's all good for Michigan.
It's all very bipartisan stuff. I mean, the interest to grow the state, replace assets with high quality, efficient, reliable, and affordable assets is what we do.
All right.
Look, Kevin, Jerry, thank you for this conversation.
Appreciate
and
it.
Jerry, thank you
Yep.
and the team at DTE Energy for sponsoring this stage.
Our pleasure.
live from Mackinac, sponsored by DTE Energy.
Right.
We are going to take a break. We'll be back at 11:55 for more enriching conversations. This has been a great opportunity to hear from all the stakeholders at this conference and to present you, our Michiganders, with an insider's view on this conference. Let me just tell you what is coming up on the main stage between now and 11:55. We're going to have a conversation with Austin Goolsbee, who is the president of the Chicago branch of the Federal Reserve Board, and also a former economic advisor to President Obama, to talk through the economic opportunities and challenges that we're facing in Michigan as a nation right now. Following that, actually this is coming before that, we're going to have a conversation with members of Michigan's congressional delegation, Representative Bill Huizenga and Debbie Dingell, some of our long-serving members, and two first-termers, Congresswoman Kristen McDonald-Rivet and Congressman Tom Barrett. So we're looking forward to that rich conversation. We will be back here at 11:55. This is live from Mackinac, presented by DTE Energy. We look forward to continuing this conversation.